Hey guys, how's it going? And happy Friday. I hope all of you are doing good. I will say this, it's good to see lots of good people in the comment section, and I look forward to reading all the comments for those of you that watch these live streams on replay. However, yeah, there's a however, comma, unfortunately. There's some stuff going on right now that's not so good. The ATF, yet again, I know, I just said it. The ATF, make sure your dogs are in order, is at it again, and they're getting ready kind of quietly. And some people are talking about it, but not a whole lot. They're getting ready to fundamentally change the way you can transfer your lawfully owned property, your firearms. With the proposed rule and the comment periods ending soon, like literally in about 6 days, link to that's down in the description if you guys want to check it out and leave your comment or read or not. You guys do you, but they're getting ready to make it where people like me and people like you, in most cases, in fact, in almost all cases, won't be able to sell a firearm, transfer. You don't even have to sell. Money doesn't even have to be involved. We're going to get into this without having to go through or become an FFL, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. See, that's what I love about the Second Amendment so much. And not only says what, very succinctly, beautiful words, but it tells you why. Guys, we're barely free at all anymore. Barely. And the little bit of freedom we have left is getting encroached on every single day. And if a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state, then how would you attain such a well-regulated militia? With arms, obviously. And then it continued. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, which obviously involves transferring firearms. Say, the natural God-given right to keep and bear arms and trade them and sell them and disperse of them throughout the general public, this is an idea that predated the United States of America. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for people that were following their natural God-given rights at the time of the founding of this country, we wouldn't be the United States of America, literally. Now, Congress has been tearing down the Constitution of the United States of America for a long, long time, unfortunately. We look at the National Firearms Act, 1934, that's a long time ago. And here we are today, with tens of thousands. It's over 25,000 federal gun control laws and regulations, but that's not enough either. Those are bad, and those are doozies, and those are unconstitutional, but wait, there's more. There's the ATF, who keeps putting rules out, one after another after another. And yet again, there's another rule, and I talked about it on this channel. Back when this first came out, right at the end of August, early September. And yeah, I want to remind you guys of this because it's starting to come to a head. And while you guys are all working and trying to survive, trying to pay your bills, tax to no end, working harder and harder and still trying to pay your bills and doing what you do, this stuff's still going on. It's still churning. It's still burning. It's still going. So we need to talk about this because it's going to change a lot. And this is not going to be a good thing whatsoever. So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into some documents from the Justice Department and the ATF. And I'm also going to remind you guys a little bit tonight about this so-called bipartisan Safer Communities Act. You know, people are starting to talk about elections and election season. And I know as soon as I say that, I get it. Not many people believe in those anymore. And trust me, I understand why you have concerns and why you don't believe it's fair. I completely get that. Because it's probably not fair. But I would say, according to Time Magazine, the current former vice president is the most popular and the most fortified of all time. And with that said, let's go, Brandon, and let's get into talking about this. And let's look at what the Democrats are doing, what the deep state, the fourth unelected and probably most powerful branch of government, what they're doing, and what the Democrats and what the Republicans are doing, because there's lots of Republicans involved in this. And a lot of Republicans caused this to happen. And we need to call out both sides of the aisle, like blue, red, like it's this gang warfare thing, and shouldn't be that way. And there's a lot of them that are definitely contrary to our natural God-given rights to keep and bear arms. But before I get into this, I want to thank all of you guys real quick for the many ways you guys support this channel. All of you that are on Patreon, I appreciate you guys over there. All of the channel members here on YouTube, thank you. And a real quick note for channel members, Patreon supporters, and local supporters, I did put up a supporters only post for you guys, giving you guys an extra special discount code for Forge Tech holsters. I love them. They're awesome. It's a Michigan-based business. My friend Paul owns the company, makes them all by hand. Awesome product. Like literally, I have dozens of guns in those holsters, and make sure you guys go check out that community tab here on YouTube, and you guys will get a little bit extra. And all of my viewers, real quick, you can write this down, can use code 2AEDU to save 5%, but there's even something a little better for the supporters of the channel. So make sure you guys go over there and check that out. Also, those of you that leave super chats, thank you so much. As it gets more expensive and harder to keep this channel going financially, we kind of see support dwindling lately. So I'm doing the best I can, and I appreciate all the many ways you guys do to keep me on here and keep all of us together. And thank you so much, guys. We never want to take stuff for granted, though, because it's tough right now. So thank you, guys. And definitely check out my locals community, right? And I'm not going to say too much here on YouTube, but if you go over there, it's a completely free site, or you can support. I do live streams there weekly. So tomorrow night, I'll be on there live streaming. I touch guns while I'm live, do all kinds of extra bonus content that you're not going to see here. And also the very top pinned post. If you guys need a little extra money right now and have some extra stuff, you might want to definitely check that out for sure. One more thing, and this sale's coming to an end soon. I stocked up, but Blackout Coffee. Check the link down there in the description. If you guys use my link, it helps the channel. They have buy two, get one free bags of coffee. And their coffee's like really, really good. You can see the Winter Wonderland blend here. Oh gosh, if you guys could just literally smell this, like, trust me, really, really good coffee. And it's literally buy two, get one free, and check that out. Use my link first to go over there, and then you guys can follow the site and get a really, really good discount. So this has changed a lot of times over the years, what it means to be engaged in the business or a dealer in firearms. And the big thing started in 1968 with the Gun Control Act of 1968. Fast forward, it was modified again by the Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986. Yep, that was the one with the poison pill Hughes Amendment in it. And there were some things in there that were, I guess, kind of good, if you will, but there were some things that were really bad in the Firearms Owners Protection Act. Yes, you live in a country where a Firearms Owners Protection Act passed under Ronald Reagan, who many people say is the greatest Republican of all time. I'm not saying that, but many people say that. And it actually destroyed much of your natural right to keep and bear arms. So in 1986, this was modified again. A few other changes along the way. 2016, Barack Hussein Obama, back when the current former vice president was the vice president, that administration. Remember when we used to actually have a president in the White House? Could you imagine that again? Maybe someday. Maybe not, though. Who knows? They redefined it again and got it even like more ambiguous and all kinds of weirdness. All right. Now we got to fast forward just a little bit here, as I need to move this so I don't run it over with my chair. This is a gift I need to send somebody that was on the edge of my table. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022. This was really, really bad legislation. You can see here that it literally passed the United States Senate with 64 to 34 votes. This was a filibuster-proof vote, which means the vast majority of senators, including all the Democrats and the two independents that caucus with the Democrats, think of Sanders and King, those two. They're not technically Democrats, but they are. And then a huge number of Republicans, like 15 on some of the votes for it and 14 on the final vote, came over and made this happen. We're going to call out their names again tonight just because you guys need to know who they are and you need to remember who they are. And since I see some of my good viewers and I appreciate it, nominating other content creators in the middle of my stream for the category I was nominated in. I don't care, guys. I'm not in the popularity contest, but I was nominated for a Gundy Award for 2A influencer. So since a lot of you guys are yeah. All right. This is going to come from the original press release. This is back in August 31st, but this is coming soon. Like, what, 6 days? The 7th, I believe, is the final date that you can still comment on this. Justice Department proposes new regulation to update definition of engaged in the business as a firearms dealer. Proposed rule seeks to implement provisions of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and provide clarity on who must obtain a license and run background checks. Yeah. Make sure you guys are voting for me and hitting the thumbs up because I've got loyal viewers in the chat rooting for other people in my stream, which is good. Vote for other people. That's totally fine. But don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment afterwards because it's called the algorithm on YouTube. So the Justice Department today, and this is back in August, announced it has submitted to the Federal Register a notice of proposed rulemaking that would clarify the circumstances in which a person is engaged in the business of dealing in firearms and thus required to obtain a license and run background checks. We're talking about universal background checks here, and that you may, and most likely would in many situations, need to get a license, okay, to be able to engage in the business of dealing. Well, that sounds terrible. First of all, the fact that we even have FFLs. Let's face it. A lot of my friends are FFLs. And I wish their business as well. But any constitutionally minded FFL will tell you. They should tell you. If they're constitutionally minded, they would tell you. I'll say that more correctly. That FFLs are unconstitutional. Literally. You don't need a license to sell a tchotchke or a pen or a piece of paper, right? Well, no. Literally, the Second Amendment enumerates and protects a natural God-given right very, very specifically. The right to keep and bear arms is protected higher than other random things, right? So, with that said, this shouldn't even be talked about. An FFL in the United States of America, where the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, you shouldn't need a license to sell. You shouldn't need a license to buy. Nothing. Nothing even similar to that. But here we are. And it's not going to be running a business like you think. This isn't like you have to start a gun shop to need an FFL. We'll get into more of the meat and potatoes in a little bit. I just want to set this up because I kind of erred a little bit and thought that I didn't need to talk about this again. But I've also been talking to people more and more, both online and in real life. And yeah, like most people are like, what are you even talking about? So I guess this all went under the radar. I mean, how many of you guys knew this was literally getting ready to, like, the public comment period's ending next week on this? The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, enacted June 25th, 2022, expanded the definition of engaging in the business of firearms, dealing to cover all persons who devote time, attention, and labor to dealing in firearms as a regular course of trade or business to predominantly earn a profit through the repetitive purchase and sale of firearms. On March 4th, current former Vice President Biden issued an executive order. I'm not going to read every part of this, but they're saying the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act was passed by Congress to reduce gun violence, including by expanding the background checks that keep guns out of the hands of criminals, said Attorney General Merrick Garland. This is expanding background checks. This is universal background checks, right? This is Literally insane. They're saying an increasing number of individuals engaged in the business of selling firearms for profit have chosen not to register as federal firearms licensees as required by law, said ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach. There we go. Instead, they have sought to make money through the off-book illicit sale of firearms. These activities undermine the law, blah, 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 blah. It's intentional invasion of the background check system. Okay, well, they're putting it all fluffy, how a lot of reasonable gun control people, look, there's no such thing as that. I'm using huge air quotes for any of you that are just listening. But yeah, it's not that straightforward. It's not just, oh, well, this guy just set up a gun shop on the corner, blah, blah, blah. No. This new proposed rule would clarify the circumstances in which a person is, quote, engaged in the business of dealing in firearms and thus required to obtain a license and follow the laws Congress has established for FFL dealers. Now, when you go over to the definition of engaged in the business of dealing in firearms, so this is the part where the NPRM, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, right? And the link for that is down in the description in the video. You can read this summary here, and then you can read the whole rule if you want. The rule's literally 97 pages long. It goes through background. It goes through historical analogs. It goes through this. It goes through that. And like literally, none of it makes any sense whatsoever. It's like one of those cases of by the time you're done reading it, like literally reading something that's 97 pages long, whatever it is, 94 pages, and all of it requires the listener to be dumber than the speaker. By the time you're done reading this stuff, you literally just have like no idea what they're even talking about, but I'll try to go over some of it here, just some of the key parts, because this is pretty bad, really bad for the Second Amendment. And well, just like all of these things, we've talked about red flag laws, and those are actually going to tie into this too. This is all this Safer Communities Act. A lot of these also violate much of the Bill of Rights, much of due process. In this case, it's going to completely undermine your presumption of innocence. So we're going to look at this here. This is again from the government's website. Definition of engaged in the business as a dealer in firearms. On August 30th, the Attorney General signed ATF's Notice of Proposed Rulemaking 2022R-17, Definition of Engaged in the Business as a Dealer in Firearms, which proposes to amend the ATF's regulations to implement the provisions of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, BSCA, enacted on June 25th, 2022. So this is almost a year and a half ago. Gosh, time flies. I was literally just sitting here talking about this Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Seemed like it was maybe like a week ago, a month ago, maybe it was a few months ago. Now that's been a year and a half ago now that passed. Now they're all coming home to roost because there was a lot in that bill. A lot of really bad stuff on its face, and then a lot of devil in the details. And why do we even have to deal with this? Do you guys sit and think about this like I do? It's literally insane. Like, we have laws, but the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. The Constitution says shall not be infringed. Now, only Congress can make law. That's what the Constitution says. But if you were to pass any law, even through Congress, even if it was signed by a president or a current former vice president, it would still be null and void if it violated the Constitution. That's what Marbury v. Madison said. We're talking like 1803, very, very early. Supreme Court precedent said, all laws that are repugnant to the Constitution, those are void, meaning they're gone. They don't exist. Poof. But yet here we are, where there was a law passed that's clearly repugnant to the Constitution. All right? But that's not enough. No, it's never enough. Look, guys, these people are never, ever, ever going to stop trying to take our guns until they've taken every last one. And when you talk about the principle of gun control, you need to think about it a little bit further. The operative phrase is not the gun, it's the control. They want to control us, and they want to do stuff that we don't even want to think about to us. Obviously, I mean, that's literally what every other country in the world has always done every single time, is picked up everybody's guns before they started doing things that were considered to be unthinkable. I'm not talking about stuff that's happened like 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, because look, this is a battle of good versus evil. Always has been, always will be. This stuff's always happened. There's literally nothing new under the sun. That's what the Bible says. And it's pretty obvious. But so this stuff's always happened, but like some of this crazy stuff that people are like, oh my gosh, that's just so long ago. Not really. Not really. Waco, Texas was not that long ago. Ruby Ridge was not that long ago. Wounded Knee, I guess it's quite a bit further ago, but not that long ago. The killing fields in Cambodia, not really that long ago. I bet you more people could like cite sports stats. Probably like how many touchdowns did their favorite running back or wide receiver or quarterback have? What were the records of their favorite college team for the last 12 years? People probably literally know more about that than they do all of the mass genocide that's been going on in the world since literally the beginning of time, and literally in the last 50 years, 20 years, 70 years, 5 years, 1 year, literally right now as we speak. You guys literally know that there's more slaves now in the world than there were in the 1800s, right? And when Abraham Lincoln did his Emancipation Proclamation, he didn't set any slaves free at all, actually. He made it where every last person can become a slave. Did you know that? Well, if you don't believe me, go read the amendments to the Constitution for yourself. We've literally lived in a world since the 1860s where every last person can be enslaved in servitude via the United States penal system for violating laws. Completely and utterly unconstitutional laws, but that's still not enough. See, it's never enough. Like I said, they're never going to stop. It's also rules that carry full force and effect of a law from a law enforcement agency called the ATF. Now, you guys have heard the old trope before. Oh, geez, this is a canary court. This person's the judge and the jury. Yeah, but like the ATF is everything. They're literally acting. I mean, I guess they're allowed to be everything as long as we, the people, consent. And well, the Supreme Court will save us. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know about that, but we'll see. I mean, I guess, maybe. I guess they're our only hope, considering how most people don't even know about this rule, and even a lot of them that know don't even care. And I'm not talking about you guys. You guys are here right now, and I can see in the chat that a lot of you care. But they're going through and redefining an unconstitutional law via rule by what's supposed to be part of the executive branch. But here's the problem. The ATF, executive branch, they're supposed to execute laws of the land. They all take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. So they're supposed to defend the Second Amendment and the whole Constitution, obviously, and enforce lawful laws. Yeah. But instead, they sit there and they re-clarify. And then they allow us to have a public comment. And then they do whatever the heck they want because they rule that their own rule is constitutional. Now, that almost sounds like there's somebody that's combining the duties and the powers of the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. See, Congress writes a law. The courts do nothing to swat the law down. And then the current former vice president, where am I? What's going on? He turns around and he walks into a wall. So there's clearly No leadership there. And that's probably actually a good thing, because if he had even like 3 or 4 brain cells that were still working, we could be in even worse trouble. So I guess we should be glad that he's running around saying, Shubin and I'm in a national pressure, and doesn't even know where he is. But you guys get my point. We have a rogue agency. And that's actually the most important thing of all of this. And then I'm going to get into some of these bullet points right now. Is that we have an agency that appears to answer to nobody. And they've declared themselves to be all 3 branches of government tied into a super branch with superpowers that's unchecked by nobody but themselves. I mean, they're literally going to rule here soon in the next week on whether their notice of proposed rulemaking is legit or whatever. I don't even think they consider whether it's constitutional or not. Well, actually, they do. In order for them to write a rule, they have to make sure it's unconstitutional. So they do consider it that way. The complete opposite of all of the oaths they take. I'm going to go through this, and let's read a couple of these through kind of slowly and carefully. Because there's some stuff in here that's really, really scary. I'll just be blunt about it. I'm being kind of blunt tonight. There's stuff that just needs to be said once in a while. Even if the algorithm doesn't like it, even if some people get their feelings hurt, I mean, we're in a messed up situation, and it's our fault, I guess. I mean, I'll just point to myself. It's my fault. I mean, where are we at right now? It's really, really crazy. The NPRM proposes to incorporate the BSCA's definition of predominantly earn a profit, creating a standalone definition of terrorism. I did a video like over a year ago about the MVEs. You guys remember that, right? The militia, violent extremists. I mean, I have the number and letter 2A on my head and a big 2A back there. I'm literally considered to be a terrorist or a violent extremist according to memos, rules that have been put out by the Department of Justice for saying 2A. Think about this for 1 minute. For citing the name of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution puts you into a certain category? Now look, as I saw the corner of my eye, someone mentioned Michigan. There's Michigan Universal Background Check Licensing Registration Scheme that's getting ready to go into effect in February. This here I'm talking about, that's in addition to all this. This is federal. This is a federal rule, which is going to put in a universal background check scheme that's going to affect everybody, or certainly almost everybody to some extent or another. And amending the definitions of principal, objective of livelihood and profit, and engage in the business to ensure each conforms to the BSCA statutory changes and can be relied upon by the public. Furthermore, the NPRM specifically proposes to clarify when a person is engaged in the business as a dealer in firearms or wholesale or retail buy, clarifying the definition of dealer and defining the term purchase and sale as they apply to dealers. Clarifying when a person would not be engaged in the business of dealing in firearms and as an auctioneer, or when purchasing firearms for and selling firearms from a personal collection. So you'll still be allowed to collect because, yeah, that's what the Second Amendment was all about. Think about this. A well-stocked collection being necessary to the laziness and complacency of an almost dead republic. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I mean, is that what the Second Amendment says? Well, according to them, I guess. Is the Second Amendment about collecting or hunting? Setting forth conduct that is presumed to constitute. Hold on a minute. Let me read this. We got to think about this, what this says. Because if you just skim it quickly, you don't really understand what they're saying. In this country, we all have a presumption of innocence. Correct? Presumption of innocence. You're the presumed innocent unless, and if it's criminal, beyond any reasonable doubt, a jury of your peers can be convinced otherwise. And you have certain due process rights that are protected by the Bill of Rights that would go along. But the main thing I want to reiterate is presumption of innocence. Now listen to this. Setting forth conduct that is presumed to constitute, quote, engaging in the business of dealing in firearms and presumed to demonstrate the intent to predominantly earn a profit from the sale or disposition of firearms, absent reliable evidence to the contrary. Everybody knows what I just read there. Think about what that just said. It's to presume you constitute this. It's to presumed you're doing that. You guys know that, like, dealing as an FFL without the actual license, it's a big time felony. Big time, big time, big time. These are rules that potentially could make an untold amount of people felons, enslaved. Guys, I know some people don't believe me, but it's true. Abraham Lincoln didn't end slavery. He made it where everybody can become a slave. Don't believe me? Go read yourself. Where you can literally find yourself a slave of the system in a penitentiary. Like, this is major, like, I can't say laws, rules that have the same force and effect of law and regulations. And it is to be presumed you're doing these things wrong, that you're doing these deeds, unless it's absent that you can prove otherwise. So this is about the Second Amendment. And it's definitely second about the amendment, but you're never supposed to be presumed that you're doing anything unless you can provide reliable evidence to the contrary, or unless they can see evidence to the contrary. This is the type of precedent that they're setting, trying to set. I guess you could say setting. I mean, it's not really that they're trying to anymore. They're actually just kind of like doing it, right? I'm probably getting a lot of thumbs downs today, guys. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and show the channel a little love, because I've called out what most people consider to be the two greatest Republicans of all time. I've called out Abe Lincoln and Ronald Reagan pretty hard right now, but see, that's the thing with me. And that might be the problem with me for some people, but I hope we can still be friends, because I don't have a problem with you if you're whatever, like certain people that I don't. But look, it's not about a Republican or a Democrat for me. It's about, do you support our natural God-given rights or you don't? And there isn't really any gray area. There isn't any compromise. There isn't any, well, maybe I kind of sort of do a little bit sometimes. No. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And I don't care what's behind your name. I don't care if I like you. I don't care if I don't like you. None of that matters. Anybody who would ever strip away any of our natural God-given rights. We mostly talk about our natural right to keep and bear arms here. But anyone that would be willing to strip any of them away, let alone large, huge chunks of them away, they're not on the side of the Constitution. They're not on the side of the Declaration of Independence. They're not on the side of this grand experiment on the self-governance. And look, it's super, super easy to call out Shubidadabadash pressure and Barack Hussein Obama, and we do need to call them out. And I call them out very, very frequently. But sometimes it's hard to realize that you're in the shape you're in because in so many cases, these people have been two sides to the same coin. Now, I had my favorite state representative, Jamie Thompson, on last week, and she is a Republican. But I didn't have her on to talk about real stuff, and I hope you guys liked that stream last week. I had a really good time because of the R next to her name. I had her on so we could talk about just stuff. We can talk about life. We can talk about all this chaos that goes on behind the scenes, and I respect her, and I have her back because she believes shall not be infringed means what it means, and says what it says. I don't like Republicans. I don't like Democrats. Donald Trump banned bump stocks by using this Chevron deference, and by even after his own ATF said, sir, we can't ban. Look, Barack Obama wouldn't even ban bump stocks because he knew he couldn't. Donald Trump did. And he didn't just ban bump stocks, he opened us up for all of this. And here we are right now. The ATF's going rogue. I mean, they've always been rogue. They've never been legitimate. They've never been constitutional, but they're going rogue in the last couple of years like we've never, ever seen them before. This stuff's going to tie in with red flag laws as I get into the Safer Communities Act in a few minutes. And Donald Trump was the first person I ever heard call for red flag laws publicly the way he did, that was supposed to be on our side. I mean, he literally got up there and said, if you elect me, your 20-year assault on the Second Amendment's over. Notice I haven't told you guys how to vote tonight. I'm not going to tell you guys how to vote tonight. I'm not telling you who to be a fan of, but jeez, oh Pete. When I sit here and think about why we're here right now, and why it's not only that they're trying to make everybody have to be an FFL licensee or become felons, I can name you more Republicans that are to blame than even Democrats, and that's terrible. Somebody said to me recently, they said, well, yeah, dude, this is why Congress has like a 12% approval rating. I'm like, how is it that high? Guys, we have to focus on our local governments and our local communities. Holton Township, Michigan, just formed a militia recently. I didn't have time to read it, but I did just get an email from one of the family members of the people that passed it with some more information. So I may do a quick follow-up video on that, because I first reported on that, probably almost 2 weeks ago now. Yeah. Let's try to make a change. And this is what I challenge all of you to do. Get your New Year's resolutions going a month in advance for this next year. We need to really start making changes in your township, in your city, your village, your whatever, your county, your school board, your state representative, your state senator. Guys, I'm a landscaper, and I know how to talk to my state representative and my state senator. I promise you guys, if you put forth enough effort, and it's probably going to be very little effort, you'll be able to meet face-to-face your state representative and your state senator, your county commissioners, your township trustees, your city councilmen, whatever they are. You guys, it's not called the same thing everywhere, but you guys get my point. Your school board. I promise you can meet these people, and we need to talk about this stuff because, yeah, when the feds are in your hometown, who's going to matter? The people in your hometown, probably. Setting forth conduct that is presumed to constitute, unless you can provide evidence to the contrary. Right? Clarifying that the intent to predominantly earn a profit does not require, listen to this, this is insanity. Clarifying that the intent to predominantly earn a profit does not require the person to have pecuniary. It's a word that you can't even pronounce, but I looked it up. It means monetary gain. Okay? Monetary gain. So wait a minute. Hold on a minute. So clarifying that to predominantly earn a profit does not require that the person have received any type of money. Excuse me. And that intent does not have to be shown when a person purchases or sells a firearm for criminal or terrorism purposes. Did you just hear what I said? I mean, I didn't say this. clarifying that the intent to predominantly earn a profit does not require the person to actually have received any money. That's literally what it says here. And that intent does not have to be shown when a person purchases or sells a firearm for criminal or terrorism purposes. So you have to have no intent, no mens rea. I thought that's like, ugh. Can you guys help me out here? Like, what country do we live in right now? You're no longer presumed innocent. No, you're already presumed you're doing this unless you can provide evidence to the contrary. It says here, and then it goes right back down and says you could be predominantly earning a profit with no money gained at all. And then it finishes the sentence by saying that it doesn't even require any type of intent. What do you think, DLD After Dark? This is not just the Second Amendment anymore, guys. Look, the Second Amendment was put there, not for if, but for when. They came for all the rest, and they're coming for all the rest. Obviously, I mean, you don't even have to have any intent anymore. I mean, that's what this says. I mean, I didn't write this. Links down in the description if you guys want to read what it says. Like, but it's pretty. I had to use a thesaurus, guys. I didn't know how to pronounce this stupid word, but it just means money, right? Okay. Adding a single definition for the term personal collection of firearms, or personal firearms collection, and adding a definition for the term responsible person. Look, everyone's like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean, like a personal collection? Like, you just know that when you mean it. Not necessarily. You guys know the new Supreme Court Justice, remember? She's up there. She's in front of the United States Senate. What a dog and pony show the United States Senate is. Well, you'll see when I tell you which Republicans voted for the law that this new rule is now spawning off of. But she's up there, and they're like, one of the senators said, ma'am, I have a, and she, don't assume my gender. You know, don't assume, they say. It's like, give me a break. They said, what's the difference between a male and a female? She said, oh, I couldn't even possibly know. I have no idea. No, one more time. If you were to be, confirmed, we need to know this. How do you define a male or female, a man and a woman? How do you define? She says, oh, I couldn't possibly define. I have no idea. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. How could I possibly know? We literally have somebody sitting on the Supreme Court right now in the United States of America, the country formerly known as the United States of America, whatever you want to call it, that literally says, I have no idea. So as preposterous as what you think this is, like adding a new definition for a personal collection. Like, here's the thing. Most of you think that you know what a person is, don't you? And you probably do. I assume that even if your third grade children are watching, which is why I keep this channel family friendly, dude, they know infinitely more about common sense than any bureaucrat or almost any elected official in Washington, D.C., that's for sure. I found some good elected officials on the local level, guys. I'm not trying to blackpill you tonight. I'm trying to inspire you that I know some good ones. I know some good ones around town, and I know some good ones in my home state. Once I get to Washington, not so good. Don't want to know these people. But, dude, your third grader can answer this. These people can't. You think you know. Now, keep in mind, you could be wrong on some of these definitions according to them, but that doesn't matter anymore because it doesn't matter what your intent is. We just read that a few minutes ago, and it literally definitely, no matter what, doesn't matter that you're presumed to be not doing something. No, you're presumed. You're presumed to be doing something wrong unless you can specifically prove and exonerate yourself. So, we don't know. The Supreme Court Justice, one more time, is like I'm not insulting your intelligence. I know you guys are smarter than me. I have to say it to myself at least 3 times here. Like, oh, okay, am I awake? Where am I? What's going on? Shubin and Amadadash the pressure. I'm Joe Biden's husband. I'm Joe Biden, and I'm going to beat Joe Biden. I mean, Whew, the struggle's real. All right, I'm back. I'm good. We live in a country where our Supreme Court justice, oh, I couldn't possibly tell you what a man and a woman is. What's a woman? I don't know. Never seen one. I'm not a biologist. I mean, who? Yeah. Addressing how former licensees and responsible persons acting on behalf of former licensees may lawfully liquidate business inventory upon revocation or other termination of their license. That's something I'm not an expert on, but that's going to have to do with people who are already licensees, right? Yeah. Like, I know what a woman is. It's an adult human female. But no, you're wrong. The Supreme Court is going to decide what's a woman. We don't know. We have no idea. Never heard of it. Couldn't. Clarifying that licensees. Now you guys are thinking, now he's talking about the licensee section. Doesn't affect me. I just sell a few guns from time to time. I stop by the gun show. Not me. I'm just saying maybe somebody out there, some theoretical person watching might be thinking to themselves, I get a gun for a good deal at the gun show. Yeah, maybe I take it back and sell it later on. You don't have to have a gun shop here pretty soon, according to them, to have your FFL. Even though, here's the ironic part, they give out very few, almost none in most cases, tabletop FFL. See, I'm pretty sure it was in jest, but a couple people earlier were like, sweet, I'll have my FFL. Not so fast. Not so fast. I know people around here that have tried to get kitchen top FFLs, it's called, out of their own home, just so they could do like FFL transfers and not even keep inventory and just transfer and maybe a couple guns in their inventory. They had different circumstances. It's really, really tough right now, and in many cases, virtually impossible to even get an FFL if you're trying to run it out of your kitchen table, right? So that's not going to be the little loophole. Like, look, guys, everyone has a different way of thinking, and you guys all do you. Like, I promise you, like, you do you, I'll do me. No judgment here on a personal level, but think about this. Why is it that everybody looks for a loophole 1,000 times harder than they ever look for a solution? Like, what is that? If someone can help me, please, like, I'll read these comments afterwards. I always do. I'm not like a psychology major, but psychology majors a lot of times are more nuts than people that aren't. Shout out to all the psychology majors, but you know what I mean? It's like, look, what is it in human nature where you look for a loophole and you'll spend all of this time and stress looking for a loophole rather than a solution? Like with the pistol brace rule that there's an injunction on, by the way, for everybody in the country. There's an injunction. Everyone was saying, well, this is awesome that we have this pistol brace rule because now I get to get my free SBR, my free this, my free that. Well, you can become a slave for free too. Just go commit a crime and you can work the servitude for your masters, for the prison industrial complex. Here's where it's really messed up. You're not even just working for the state of whatever. You're working for the prison industrial complex because most of them are privatized now. Look into it. It's not just the military industrial complex and the pharma industrial complex and the education indoctrination industrial complex and the food and agricultural industrial complex. You guys know that like the wheat that's sold here and the chemicals they use to harvest it aren't even legal in most civilized countries. Like it's literally illegal as a poison, the wheat that's in your bread in other countries. I'm not joking. But there's also the prison industrial complex. So you can always get something for free, like a free ride, a free cot, 3 hots in a cot. Somebody said that to me. They're like, hey, man, at least it's 3 hots in a cot. Whatever. A little slavery ain't that bad as long as you, I mean, yeah, the food ain't that good, but it's still something. Like that's how a lot of people have been talking lately around here. How many of you guys got excited about that free tax stamp? How many of you, and then not literally you, just like maybe your friends and stuff you're talking to about this, how many people are excited right now? Okay. How many people are excited right now about, ooh, I can become an FFL and get all the guns super cheap from the distributors. Look, guys, I've never been an FFL, and I'm not going to become one, by the way. But you sit there and like you think to yourself, I used to think this years ago, but I've learned it's not true. There ain't even that much of a markup most of the time at FFL. So you ain't even going to be getting your guns much cheaper, but they don't sell guns wholesale to people that are at their kitchen table. This is going to be a conundrum. This is going to be a mess. And I don't think there's anything good going to become of this at all. But maybe I'm wrong. A lot of people online told me that the brace rule was one of the best things that had ever happened. They said, dude, this brace rule is awesome. I got so many free SBRs. It's not even funny. And hey, I guess I just missed the whole boat on that, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, clarifying that licensees, which literally could be a lot of you soon, that's why I'm bringing this up, must follow the verification and record-keeping procedures in 27 CFR 478.94 and like 3,000 other rules that you probably don't even know exist. But don't worry, you don't need intent anymore. Mens rea isn't really a requirement. You're just kind of presumed to do this. Whether you knew you were doing anything wrong or not is what it says. Subpart H, rather than using a Form 4473 when firearms are transferred to other licensees, including transfers by a licensed sole proprietor to that person's personal collection. So we're talking bound books is what we're talking about here, which is one of the most arduous tasks that any type of FFL or I guess somebody who likes to maybe pick up a gun here and there and move it along or something, whatever you guys do. I don't know. Any thoughts on this stuff? You guys hear the sirens right now? See if they keep getting louder. I can hear sirens going down the road here. Now, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button big time, guys. I've ripped on Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan and Abe Lincoln all tonight. Yeah. Well, look, guys, it's just called one thing. I'm a Second Amendment purist. I don't care about anything else other than it says what it says. It means what it means back then and now. And other than that, I don't care about any of the rest of these people, like what their titles are and what their letters are behind their names. It's just like, whatever, dude. So don't forget to leave a thumbs up button because trust me, ripping out an Abe Lincoln can be pretty bad on the internet because I'm supposed to be a Republican since I'm a gun tuber and a Second Amendment supporter. That means I have to be a Republican. No, it doesn't. It just means literally that I follow the Second Amendment. And I walk the walk, too. I go there to see what's going on in my hometown, what's going on in my state capital. And I've had several good state reps and senators on this channel, just this session alone, that were out there fighting, that were out there dog fighting. Dude, these people are in a fight for all of our lives right now, the good ones, because they're outnumbered. See, there's a lot more bad ones than good ones in so many instances that when you do find a good one, you need to have their back. So don't take me the wrong way. It doesn't mean I hate all Republicans either. It's just I don't like them just because they have the R. They actually have to do freedom-loving things when they get in office. And then I really, really appreciate them. And I don't look at them as above me or anything like that, but I look at them as somebody I need to get behind if they're actually fighting the good fight. That's why I had Jamie Thompson on my stream last week. So don't think I hate Republicans. I'm just not a fan of Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan or Abe Lincoln. That's all. That's all I'm saying right now. Or George Bush either. Like, not whatsoever, actually. Or the other George Bush? No. So, But I'm not a fan of Clinton either. Or Obama. So, not much of a fan of any of it when you get to up to the president level. Trust me. Not a big fan of really any of them. And I could keep going so much further back. We could talk about Woodrow Wilson. We could go and go and go. We could talk about the disputes between Alexander Hamilton, right? Hamilton and Jefferson. I mean, this stuff goes back like really, really far. But let's just go back a little bit here. Maybe this isn't so long ago. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022. Just refresh your memory. I talked about this, but hey, this has been a year and a half ago. I can't believe it, man. Whew. How the time flies. Thanks, Tovis. I'm not a fan of Grover Cleveland either, Gord. He says, congrats on your nomination for the Gundy. Well, thanks, man. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022 was a firearm regulation and mental health bill passed by the 117th Congress and signed into law by current former Vice President Joe Biden on June 25th, 2022. The United States Senate voted 64 to 34 to approve a motion to proceed on June 21st. The Senate voted 65 to 34 to invoke cloture on the bill on June 23rd and approved the bill in a 65 to 33 vote on the same day. The House approved the bill in a 234 to 193 vote on June 24th. You guys know what the invoking cloture vote is. That's basically making it where you're stopping the filibuster. If one senator says, I object, they now have to overrule them by a supermajority. And yeah, right here, enough Republicans crossed over to the other side of the aisle. That's what the saying is for it, right? And they do. I've sat on the Michigan House of Representatives floor, and there's a big aisle up the middle, right? And the Democrats sit on the left, and the Republicans sit on the right. That's why it's called right wing, left wing. I mean, that's where these names come from. It comes from other countries in the past, I've heard, but anyways, that's what it means today. So when they say they crossed over on the other side of the aisle, here we are. The House approved the vote 234 to 193. Senator Chris Murphy released the bill in the form of an amendment to S 2938 on June 21st. So even this bill was an amendment to an omnibus bill. And here's the brief summary of what this did. Expand background checks for individuals under the age of 21 purchasing firearms. Provide for $11 billion in mental health services, including increased funding for the Medicaid Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic Program. That was a mouthful. Increased funding for school-based mental health programs and investments in pediatric mental health care services. Preventing individuals who have been convicted of a domestic violence misdemeanor or felony in dating relationships from purchasing a firearm for 5 years. Providing $750 million. Now, this is where I brought up the whole red flag thing. I told you we'd circle back, okay? Providing $750 million for state grants to implement crisis intervention order programs, also referred to as red flag laws, that would allow authorities to confiscate firearms from individuals who have been determined by a court to be a significant danger to themselves or others. The grants could also be used to support mental health courts, drug courts, veterans courts, and extreme risk protection orders. Yeah, a court, a canary court. Literally, it's called take the guns first, then due process, which, as we all know, is no due process at all. This is an ex parte hearing, and these are coming to Michigan here in like a month and a half, 2 months, whatever it is, couple months, we'll just say 2.5 months from now. And they're bribing all 50 states. Every one of your states is getting bribed by this Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. It's called an ex parte hearing, where the person goes in front of the judge to proclaim you're this or you're that, or he said, she said, but you're not there. You're not there to provide exculpatory evidence. The problem here is you're literally presumed to do this and presumed to do that unless you can prove otherwise. But when it comes to red flag laws, you don't even get to go there to prove it all until they've already taken all your guns. Throwing them on the front lawn, left you defenseless in the meantime, so you can then go back and prove. You can prove that you're not this or you're not that. He lied, she lied, he said, she said. Take the guns first, then due process. Crazy. That's all part of this. And then providing $2 billion for community-based violence prevention initiatives. But what that ended up being is them dumping a bunch of money into anti-gun programs, where you end up seeing all these different groups that are gun grabbers. Let's call them what they are. These are gun grabbers. These are people coming for your guns, literally. They're pumping them with a ton of money. Yeah. So, if you guys want some people to blame, I'll list some people you can blame. And maybe you guys are paying attention in the primaries in these states. Because this here definition of engaged in the business is dealer in firearms. This rule, the comment period's going on right now, but they're going to be ending comment on this proposed rule here in less than a week. And then something similar to what they're talking about, or it could be like completely different, like the pistol brace rule was. Remember the checklist sheet and all that for the pistol brace rule? So here's the problem. They put this rule in front of you. You comment on it. Doesn't matter what you say, how many people say it. They could come back and have a totally different rule. Like, think about that for a minute. Literally crazy, right? Yeah. So we don't know exactly what the rule is going to look like, but it's probably coming soon. So this rule, according to them anyways, but who knows, they probably would have made up another reason why they could do this. They claim they get the power to do this by what was passed in this, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022. Okay, and that's why I'm tying these two together, because they are tied in together. So there's a whole bunch of representatives, and there's a lot of those. But let's focus on the Senate right now, because that's all that could have stopped this. Not saying you shouldn't focus on the representatives. I just don't want to go over listing 435 representatives for 2 hours here. But they had a Democrat control at that time. So this was going to pass the House no matter what. But the Senate could have stopped it. And if these people did what they promised during their campaign speeches and taking all of these Second Amendment voters for granted, the Senate could have and would have and should have stopped this if they weren't, in my opinion, liars and frauds to all their voters. 48 Democrats voted yes. All right. 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats, all right? This is King and Sanders, right? Senators, they voted yes. 14 Republicans voted yes. Now, this was on the final passage of the bill. And here's the weird part. And I don't know, I'm just going to say it's strange. Like, again, something I don't know if I'm truly trying to figure it out, but I haven't quite figured this out yet. It's a weird thing that happens a lot. When I talk about Michigan gun control, and there was an 11 bill, 3 subject matter package that passed earlier this year, going into effect soon. Also, this quote domestic violence bill making you a prohibited person for 8 years for committing domestic violence, but many of these criteria don't even involve violence at all. Like, I talk about that stuff. And a lot of people in the comments, and I know you guys are just trying to encourage me, and I appreciate it, are like, leave Michigan. You have to get out and you have to get to a free state. And they'll say you have to get to a Republican state. They very frequently say that. And they'll say stuff like, move to the gun-loving state of Kentucky. Move to the gun-loving state of North Carolina. Move to the gun-loving state of South Carolina. And they'll say, move to West Virginia. It's like 90% red. Move there because there's like never been any gun control in West Virginia. And then they'll say, dude, literally, like, you need to move to Iowa. It's mostly like cornfields in Iowa, right? And then they'll say, move to the great state of Indiana. Now here's the thing though. Like, Indiana's an awesome state. I like it a lot. In fact, I like every state that I've been to on this list, and I even like these states that I haven't been to on this list. But dude, like, I think South Carolina is a great place. And then people will say, hold on a minute, you have to move to the state of Missouri. Because if you move to the state of Missouri, all your problems are over. Because we even passed the Second Amendment Protection Act. And I reported on it here on this channel. And I loved it. I think it's great. Apparently, they're getting shot down right now on that. So I encourage all of you who live in Missouri. Like, I really do. Awesome people live in these states. And the one I get it the most from is Texas. Don't mess with Texas. The Republic of Texas. And most people are just encouraging me, but a lot of people kind of do it like a ha 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 ha, sucks to be you. Like, that's what you get. You deserve to live in Michigan, because by you living in Michigan, like, you prove that it's like, well, hold on a minute. Because here's the problem. Move to the great state of Alaska, they've said. And again, I believe it's a great state. I know many, many awesome people that live there. What about Louisiana? Dude, I literally have known people a long time from the state of Louisiana. Excellent state. You guys know where I'm heading with this? All of those states and more, Maine, their senators voted the same way my senators voted. Shoot. In some cases, both Republican senators from these states voted for this gun control bill. So when it comes to the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, you can't tell the difference, unfortunately, anymore between Texas, California, between New York and South Carolina, between Missouri and Michigan, between Oregon and West Virginia. You guys see the problem here, right? It sucks. Because Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri voted for the Bipartisan Gun Control Act that we're now going to see all kinds of things perpetuating off of. So you ain't safe going to Missouri, guys. Not from this. The senator voted for that. So where am I going to go? Let me keep reading. Senator Richard Burr, Republican from North Carolina, got us in this mess we're in. Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican, West Virginia, and Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia, voted for it too. The state of West Virginia, both of their senators voted for this gun control package equally to both of California's senators, both of Michigan senators, both of Oregon senators, both of New Jersey senators. We could go on and on and on. And it really, really sucks that there ain't no difference between West Virginia and California. They both vote just as hard for gun control in the United States Senate. I'm not talking about state legislatures here, guys. I'm not talking about good people, many fine people on all sides. I'll just say it. There was many fine people on both sides. And there's many fine people who live in California, who live in West Virginia, everywhere. Okay? That's not my point here. These states are all acting alike. They all voted for gun control. I know you guys didn't that live in these wonderful states, but you actually did, though, because these people represent you. And I did, even though I didn't, because of Peters and Stabenow voting for this. Let me keep going here. Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana. Senator Susan Collins, Republican from Maine. Maine's like wilderness and guns. That's the only two things I know about Maine. Oh, three things. It's like really, really cold, too. Right? Senator Joni Ernst, Republican from Iowa. Since when did corn and combines start voting for gun control? Well, I guess they have now, obviously. Do you know how many combines and farmers and good people live there? It doesn't matter how many people, they're good people that live there anymore. The senator from Iowa voted for this. Senator Lindsey Graham. Man, oh man. Lindsey Graham. I've been down to South Carolina at least 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years. I actually already have plans to go down there this March. Shout out to my South Carolina viewers, for real. You guys are good people. Lots of good people in Michigan, okay? I ain't saying, I'm not judging you guys. I'm just telling you, where are you going to go? You can go to the beautiful state of South Carolina and end up with this garbage, otherwise known as Lindsey Graham, in there, voting for gun control. Senator Mitch McConnell in the great state of Kentucky. I drive through Kentucky very frequently. I have friends in Kentucky. Lots of friends in Kentucky, actually. It's not too far from Michigan. Man. Mitch McConnell, not just any Republican, but he was the Republican minority leader. He's the top-ranking, most powerful Republican in the United States Senate. Republican from the great state of Kentucky. He voted for this, too. Well, they say that even all Democrats in Alaska are pro-Second Amendment. I've heard that. And I'm not calling people liars that said that either. I actually kind of believe that. Until the Senator Lisa Murkowski, who's the Republican from Alaska, voted for this bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Now, this is relevant to this rule, guys, because it means they also voted for this rule, because this rule comes from this law. This law made this rule possible. Let's look at my neighbor to the south, the great state of Ohio. At that time, they had, now there's been some elections since then, so job well done in some of these cases where you guys did what you had to do. Make no mistake, a few of these seats have changed, but you had a Democrat and a Republican senator at that time. I think you still do, actually. Rob Portman, Ohio, Republican. So the Republican from Ohio. Utah. I thought Utah was pretty darn conservative. Mitt Romney, Senator Romney from Utah, voted for this. Now, since South Carolina's senator voted for this, I guess I could go just a little bit north to North Carolina. How about that? Nope, because Tom Tillis, the Republican from North Carolina, voted for this. And the great state of Indiana, the other state that borders Michigan to itself, Senator Todd Young, Republican from Indiana. Now, here's the problem, guys. If I go down south, further than South Carolina, because I really do like South Carolina, that's why I keep bringing it up, and I were to hit a state called Georgia, a state that I also like, many people that live there. Now I'm going to run into 2 Democrat senators that also voted for this. Then I can go down a little more south than that, and they didn't vote for exactly this, but their current senator put in all kinds of draconian gun control laws, red flag laws. You can't modify your trigger, and like all kinds of like weird craziness. There's like a lot of pretty heavy duty gun control in the gunshine state that passed so-called constitutional carry that doesn't even include open carry. Are you kidding me? Unless you're hunting or fishing. So I don't know, like how much further I need to keep going. Like how much further south do I go? All right, I'll head north. I head up to the great state of Maine, and both of their senators are voting for this. All right, go west, young man. Haven't you been told? California's full with whiskey and women and gold. So I go over there and, oh, geez, oh, Pete's. Huh. Probably wouldn't even be allowed to own this piece of paper without registering it there. And then I could head south and, I need to head south into Mexico. And then Eric Holder, right? The Biden-Obama Holder administration, they just walk a bunch of them to me totally free there with absolutely no background check or license. So I guess that's the answer. Because I certainly couldn't head north of California and get out of this tyranny by going to Oregon or Washington. You guys have got a tough road to hoe out there. Real tough. I had to Louisiana. Like I said, I hate to say this, but even Louisiana senators vote for this. Missouri votes for this. It's really, really weird, man. That's the answer. You head south, and isn't that crazy? You think about Fast and Furious. Now there's a more recent version of it that more and more information's coming out of. Literally, the United States government has walked an untold amount of guns illegally across the southern border, across many, many borders. We've literally armed and sown the seeds of chaos in almost every conflict that's going on in the whole world. I'm not even joking. Like, literally almost all of them, and probably the ones that we don't know, it's just we don't know. So probably just literally all of them, right? Like, we run guns everywhere, though, is my point. Especially with Fast and Furious, literally like setting up straw purchases and just doing all this stuff that's like so highly illegal that the United States government literally got busted doing this. This is not a conspiracy theory. Like, they literally got found out about. You can check it. It's literally been published to the congressional record. They had immense hearings about this. And they're less worried about that than they are you moving guns around a gun show. Or, I don't know, around town, whatever the heck it is that people do. I don't know what you guys do. Don't want to know what you do. They built a fence on the southern border. I saw an excavator down there and saw the bucket. It had a big clawed bucket on it, just ripping holes in the fence. Come on in. Keep running them faster. More and more and more. Our country's literally under attack. We're under an attack by foreign invaders. Not literally everybody. This year literally broke records for online Black Friday sales, but most people I know are broker than they've ever been. I've often known people that had a few guns that sometimes need to move a few along for a little while just so they can get money to pay bills, whatever. Your tax dollars pay them to use machinery to literally dig holes, like rip holes in fences, to let as many migrants in as possible. Then your money buys them debit cards and puts them up in rather nice hotels in many cases. Well, you could go to a gun show, which is just called a private purchase. If you're just talking to a private individual, private sale, whatever. This country was founded on private transfers of firearms, obviously. And since these people, in my opinion, hate the founding of this country, that's why they're literally trying to destroy its foundations. It's not just that they're fine with, they're encouraging invasions at our borders, our southern border mainly, but also our northern border. And I'm not talking about Mexicans right now. There's many, many people from all over the place. They have no idea where they're all coming from. Some of them are good. Some of them are not so good. Let's face it. And then they want to try to bust you. You're like, oh, shoot. There aren't any gifts under the tree. Might need to move a few along down the road. Maybe permanently, maybe for a little while. Who knows? I've known a lot of people like that. Well, I don't really need 3 shotguns and 2 rifles. I'll move a rifle and a couple shotguns, pay my bills. All right, I'm not evicted. I have a roof over my head. And then, hey, maybe they get some overtime the next year. Maybe they get a bonus. I don't know. Maybe they find a $100 bill laying on the ground, right? And then they go back and try to buy back a few. You know, that's just kind of how people do things. At least normal people I've talked to do that kind of stuff. I don't know. Well, the link to this is down there in the description. You guys can check it out if you want to leave a comment. Here's the thing. I actually encourage you guys to leave a comment. Because if you literally do nothing, you consent. So that would be what I would encourage you to do. Am I telling you to? No, you wouldn't listen to me telling you what to do anyways. So I wouldn't tell you what to do, but I would encourage you to do it. Why not? Because if you literally do nothing, you're completely and utterly complacent in it. You're totally fine with it. Will your comment make a change to stop this? No, it won't. Probably not. Almost definitely not. In my opinion, seeing what they've done with these past rules, it could be 10-1. 90% of the people could say, this rule's terrible, don't want it, here's what's wrong with it. One person could say, I don't even know what the rule is. The most fortified vote of all time, I'm sure the comments are fortified. I mean, I get all the reasons why, but still might not be a bad idea to comment on it, because if for no other reason, hey, I wasn't cool with it. I said, nope. Want nothing to do with it whatsoever, right? So that's why I'm going to comment. I already know all the tons of reasons why a lot of you aren't going to comment. I know reasons why you guys say I shouldn't comment. Trust me, I get all of it. So I'm not going to harp on you and tell you what you have to do. I'm commenting. I would hope you guys do, because if you don't exercise your rights, it makes them just easier to take it away. And we have the ability to comment and stuff right now. So I would comment on this. I think there's a lot of things at stake here. Lots of things will happen. And I'll throw one more little thing about the comments. It's my hope. I can't say expectation, because you just can't predict ever what the Supreme Court will do. But it's my hope that they'll be swatting some of this stuff down. Some of these tyrannical rules in the past. And hopefully this one, which I think is inevitably going to become a rule. And I can't help but to notice that during some of the court arguments, when this stuff makes it to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. Yeah, I know there's a justice on there. What's a woman? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. What's a man? I don't know. Jeez, oh Pete. Her love life must suck. But good for her. I'm glad it sucks. But anyways, have heard lawyers and people argue, saying that this many people opposed it versus this many people supported. So if we literally all just do nothing, which I know the conservative thing to do is just leave me alone, let me crawl in my little hidey hole. And I hate to say it, but a lot of conservatives need their safe spaces, just like the far left and liberals do. Give me my safe space. I don't want to be on a list. Look, you guys are already all on a list. Trust me. You're on a list. You're on a list. Deal with it. It sucks. We shouldn't be on a list, but you're on it. And it's kind of liberating once you realize you're on it. Like, I'm on it. Okay. I guess they can put me on it again or something. But look, they do use this stuff. They use the stats of how many people commented which way or another when they bring these arguments up through the court system. And I have heard different judges and justices on different levels that do kind of tend to, this is like a very John Roberts thing to do, where instead of just, remember his thing? He said, I'm just going to call balls and strikes. That was his, yeah, right. Yeah, that was his claim to fame. No, he's actually become a very activist justice that usually goes by like, well, what's the will of the people currently? So I just wanted to throw that out there. You guys should think for yourselves. You have less than a week to comment on this, but not only will you be non-complicit and complacent with it and saying, all right, I'm cool with it, because doing nothing kind of means you're fine with it. Unfortunately, that's how it's looked at. But the courts will later look at these numbers, and it might sway a justice that's kind of on the fence. So there you go. All right, guys. Well, I am going to check out the rest of the chat replay. And I was going to come up here and see if I have any super chats, because I always like to read those, which I really appreciate. But seeing literally none tonight, I will look forward to seeing you guys over on Locals tomorrow night. Make sure you check out my Locals community. The pinned post might actually interest some of you guys. And I will be over there tomorrow night, where I can not just talk about guns. It's usually more gun related over there, but I can actually, talk and discuss and kind of review guns while I'm live. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.